Друзья, всем привет! С вами я, Софья Скай, и наша программа Actors Talk. Сегодня у меня в гостях будет моя однокурсница, подруга и замечательная, талантливая актриса ЭЛИЗАБЕТ ДЖ. Наш эфир будет проходить на английском языке, и для тех, кто не знает английского языка, предупреждаю о том, что мы переводим наши эфиры и обязательно выкладываем их в IGTV и в YouTube. Расскажу немножко об Элизабет. Элизабет снялась в таких культовых сериалах, как «БОСХ», «Доктор Хаус», «Как я встретил вашу маму», «Вероника Марс» и многие другие, а также в таких известных картинах, как «Железный человек 2», «Охота на динозавра», «Стиви Ди» и «Глава государства». Я пересматривала свою же собственную историю и очень сильно смеялась, и мое настроение было приподнятое, потому что Элизабет невероятная комедийная актриса. И я очень хорошо помню, что когда мне было 19 лет, я только приехала в Лос-Анджелес и поступила в студию Джоан Бэрон, а точнее до того, как я поступила в основной университет UCLA, я была допущена как слушатель и ознакомилась с тем, как работают актеры в студии Бэрон Браун, где и встретила наиталантливейшую Элизабет, была потрясена ее голосом, ее работой и всегда смотрела на нее как на лидера, поэтому для меня сегодня особенно интересный и важный эфир. Итак, я вижу, что Элизабет уже к нам присоединилась. Друзья, мы переходим на английский язык.
Hello, turn yourself around, baby. Hello.
Oh.
So I'm great, thank you. Everything changed. I'm such a different person since that time. I opened my own studio because when I came back to Russia, I need to tell you that there was no studio like ours in LA. So there was no chance to really practice your skill, and so I decided to open that school especially for myself at first, but then it became such a thing that actually everyone needed it. But let's talk about you. Let's talk about you and how you've been. I know that in LA and in the whole industry things are different, but I do ask my guests from the very beginning, how did you start your acting career? At what age you decided that you've realized that you're going to be an actress, and how did it happen?
Well, I did some acting in high school. I did some acting in high school, and then I did some acting in college. But I decided that at that time, I would rather be a makeup artist. So I worked as a makeup artist for several years. And then, sorry, I'm having my cat is here trying to I don't know, this is not, my cat is messing with my.
That's so great. I can see your makeup was so beautiful, and now I can understand why.
And so Chris Rock, the actor and comedian Chris Rock, was doing a film in, at the time I was living in Maryland, right outside DC, which is where I'm from, on the East Coast. And he came and he was doing a film. It was his first movie he ever directed, called Head of State. And I decided to audition for a role, and I got a role, a nice size role. I was playing the girlfriend of Nate Dogg, who has passed away, but he was a really famous rapper. So I was his girlfriend, and the whole experience was amazing. And I said, okay, I want to keep doing this. So then I got a part on an episode of The Wire. And then about a year or two later, I moved to LA.
So without any school, can you say about yourself that you've been natural, or by watching others, or how did you describe your talent? Because you're absolutely incredibly talented.
Oh, thank you. I likewise. I did do some training in college, but in the beginning it was natural. And when I came to LA, I immediately started training at the Joanne Baron D.W. Brown School, where I met you. And that's where I really learned the technique and how to act. I think before that I was just very natural, and looking back at some of the stuff I did I can cringe. but I actually met my now husband, Ron, in Maryland, and we moved here together. So without him, I don't know. I mean, it's very daunting to move across the country. So it was very helpful that he moved with me. But I really feel like training at the Meisner program and then with Lisa Melillo really helped me.
How did you choose this school and why? Did you learn about the other techniques, or just straight away it was like a you know, like the accident that you came there first and then you stopped and studied there, and I believe that you still go there even now.
A friend in Maryland suggested that I train there. So I was saying, oh, so a friend of mine in Maryland had mentioned that I train at the school. So so that was the only school that I considered going to. So immediately, about a week after I got to LA, I started training there. And I didn't really know about any other methods or techniques. This was the only school I knew of. Now, about a year or two in of being here, I simultaneously studied at the Groundlings School, which is a famous school for comedic improv, and I trained there for a little while as well.
How did you like that, and what's the difference? What are the new things you got there for comedy? Because you're so brilliant in comedy. I want to know the tricks, the secrets.
Thank you. Well, the Groundlings School was really fun. It was really hard as well because, you know, you and I are so used to working with a script and having lines that someone has written for us to say. And this was completely improv, and it was a different way of using your brain where you couldn't anticipate what you were going to say. You had to simply listen and react in the moment to what the other person was giving you, which I guess is a lot like Meisner, but without a script. It was fun. I learned a lot about how to be present, really present and listen.
Very interesting. Can you tell me about your first experience in a big movie, and how did you got in, and how was the casting for you, and how did you prepare for casting? Your own tricks. How do you get prepared?
Well, I could talk about Head of State, the film I did in Maryland, because it was the first big movie I did. But I'm going to talk about Rich and the Ruthless, which is a show that I'm on. We've just shot season 4 because I've done more TV than film. So my manager at the time had gotten me the audition, and I got some it's called sides. For anyone who's not an actor, when you get a script to rehearse for an audition, they're called sides. I don't know why, but they're just called sides. So I got my sides, and I prepared them, and I coached them with Lisa Melillo. Whenever I have an audition, I always use a coach, because it helps to have another set of eyes and another perspective looking at the lines. So I used our wonderful teacher, Lisa Melillo, to help me coach. And then I went into the audition, and it was so exciting because this is a show that is written and stars a very famous African-American actress named Victoria Rowell. And she was on the show Young and the Restless for many years. And she had written this, and my brother and I used to watch her. She's also special because she was a ballet dancer with the American Ballet Theater. So I especially idolized her. So I went into the audition, and she was there, and she was reading with me, and I was so excited, and we had a really great rapport, and we were improvising, and then I got the part. And then actually, but we didn't shoot it right away. It wasn't until a year later, because her funding had fallen through, which is a horrible problem. But a year later, I got a call saying it's still on. Do you want to do it? And yes. So the filming process was so much fun. I've never had more fun working on something than that.
Can you tell us about your role in there? a little bit?
Yes.
For those who didn't see that yet.
It feels like a dream role. The character is Emmy Abernathy. The show is about, it's a comedy show about daytime soap opera television, and it takes a look behind the camera and sees the inner workings. And my character is kind of the stereotypical bad girl. She's over-sexualized, she's manipulative, she gets jealous, she's insecure, and she's often the butt of jokes. People are often laughing at her and the situations she gets herself into. And I just think it's so much fun. And the wardrobe, the costumes we get to wear and everything are so are beautiful and over the top. I get to do lots of love scenes, but they're funny love scenes, and it's just great fun. And it's so
I don't know how it happens, but anything you're doing is almost always like really funny. I remember me seeing you in class when I just got into Los Angeles. I was 19. I didn't speak English, almost no words. And I was like, I was laughing the loudest in the room, and I was always watching the way you're choosing your character. You know, like if you read the lines, like 100 people will read it the same way. You read them absolutely different, and that's the talent. And especially, it's especially a talent to be a comedian, which is really a great thing. And also, I saw a little scene in a doctor house even there. I mean, yeah, so can you tell us about the doctor house thing? How did you get in there? And also, I really want to go back a little bit and talk about the industry for those who doesn't know how to get a manager, get an agent, and how to even start working even when you're professional. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. So Dr. House.
And thank you for your compliment. House MD. Is a great show. It was on I think Fox for a number of years, and I was playing Hugh Laurie was the character of House MD. He was a star of the show, and on this particular episode, it was the last season actually. He was bringing in a series of women to interview them because his main love relationship was with a prostitute, and she was retiring from her prostituting, and he was interviewing new women to be his next and I was one of those women being interviewed, and part of the interview process was, could I make him a proper cup of coffee? And I don't think that I did, because he didn't choose me, but it was very fun, and getting to work with him was exciting, and that was a really great experience, getting to work with such talented actors and see how they operate.
How is the whole process going on such a big shows?
Yes, I actually have played a number of prostitutes. It's in every major television show, there's always prostitutes. That's just the way women are seen here, and that's the way it is.
Big leaves, red hair, you know, like. So can you tell us what's the difference in the big shows and the little smaller ones? How's the process go? Because I was in CSI New York once, and I remember that one scene we were shooting for 2 days, you know, from like 20 cameras. It was just one scene. Is it the same on the big shows?
Big shows, they do more takes. There's a bigger budget. Smaller projects are usually, you don't get a trailer. And the process goes by much more quickly, but I like working on smaller projects just as much as bigger budget projects. Like House MD was a big budget, and you have everyone on set is unionized, so you have, you know, the hair, the makeup, the lighting guys, and everyone has their own job, and it all happens so quickly. And you also have stand-ins, so you have someone that is your hair color and your height and your skin color. standing there so that the camera and the lighting can be focused on you properly. And then when it's your time to shoot, you go in. On lower budget projects, you don't have that. You don't have the luxury. But both are equally gratifying.
Yes, so that's why the result is a little bit different as well.
Yeah.
But still, if there's a great script, it doesn't really matter, because the actors can do the film, so which is amazing. Yes, so let's go to the. Can you please tell us the secret of how to get, properly presented in the very beginning? So you moved from another city, and lots of audience who are watching us right now, they're dreaming to be in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and become working actors. And what is the steps to get to that, and accept the talent and accept the great coach like Lisa Minigulo, which we had, and all of that. So what does the management looks like?
Well, when I first moved here, I did not have a lot of training, and that was hard. But luckily, I got into the Meisner program right away. Getting an agent, for me, a theatrical agent, for those of you who are not actors, theatrical agents deal with TV and film, and then we also have commercial agents and print modeling agents and voiceover agents. So getting a theatrical agent, to me, has always been the most difficult thing. When I moved here, the first kind of agent I got was a print modeling agent. And I submitted myself on, at the time, there was a website called Now Casting. It might still be up, a Now Casting website. There's lots of websites where you can pitch yourself to agents. There's LA Casting, Now Casting, Actors Access. So I would advise using those kind of tools. But I got my print modeling agent, and they were coast to coast agency. And somehow I booked my very first audition that they sent me on, which was a magazine ad for Nestle Crunch chocolate bars. And it was a really funny picture of me. And at Coast to Coast, they also have a commercial agent division. So Hugh Leon, who has been my commercial agent for years, saw that picture and said, "Who is that?" And he brought me in to audition for him. So that's how I got my commercial agent. I got a manager before a commercial agent, and it took me a number of years to get a manager. I did a play, and I was talking to the other actors and saying, "Hey, I don't have an agent. If any of you, have a suggestion for me, I'd love to." And a wonderful actress named Alyssa Preston, who was in the play with me, I will ever be grateful to her. She hooked me up with her manager, James Symington, who was my manager for a few years. And he helped me get auditions like that I booked on How I Met Your Mother and House. So a lot of it is also just social networking with people and not being afraid to ask for help. Most of the help that I've gotten has been from other people being helpful to me. And I find it's really important to pay that forward and help others. So that's how I got my first theatrical manager. And I was never able to get a theatrical agent with him, but it's okay because he sent me on auditions. I ended up at one point emailing every single agent I could find and just submitting my reel and my headshot, and I got 3 meetings, and that's when I signed with my first theatrical agent. And I ended up, things didn't work out with her, and that's fine, but I did work through her. And then I got a new manager, and he helped me get a new agent. So it's always, getting a good theatrical agent is always a difficult thing. And it requires a lot of patience, a lot of diligence. but you have to already have a body of work. Unfortunately, you have to already have an acting reel and headshots to submit to people. So you have to build that up first, especially now because it's gotten more competitive. But that is not to say people should still come and pursue this. Just be patient and be persistent and work on your acting all the time.
What is the difference between manager and agent? That question I hear all the time.
That's a really good question. I think at the level that I'm at, they are interchangeable. Like right now I have a manager and an agent, and they both get me auditions. I feel, I don't know.
Connection.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yes, now you're back.
Okay.
Yes.
So
we stopped on that is a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. At my level, both my manager and agent act the same. They both get me auditions. I think that if you are at a very high level, you know, if you're Tom Cruise or a very high level, you know, A-list actor, a manager manages your time and your bookings and your publicity, and then your agent probably works more with contracts. But at my level, they both do the same thing. They get me auditions, and that's what I want.
So there is no such like clear explanation that it's different jobs, like truly. Yeah,
I don't know. No. I wish I knew. If you find the answer, please tell me.
Yes, great. Good to hear that, because you know I was trying to give such a proper answer. I was like, okay, manager is someone who is actually looking for an agent for you.
Well, yes, and I have to say, my manager that I'm with now, Valerie McCaffrey, who I love, I've been with her. I signed with her right before the pandemic, and I would say they work more closely. She works more closely with me. We're in contact more than I am with my theatrical agent. I have a tighter relationship with her. Yeah, and in fact, just a shout out, Hunter Duhan, who was, maybe you knew him, he was in Lisa's class, is with Valerie McCaffrey, and he is a series regular on a new Showtime show called Your Honor. I'll just give him a shout out, Hunter Duhan.
Great. I'm gonna ask him for my next live actress talk for sure.
He's awesome.
So it seems like, you know, like manager is more on your side. It's about like, I want to make sure that my actress is, you know, in a, you know, on time with the, you know, blah blah about the actor. An agent is about the contract with the actual movie, and he's responsible for both sides. If manager is more about you and how you're dealing, and like, is my actress is done, timing, she has to be wrapped, blah blah. So yeah, it makes sense. So both parts, they're looking for a job, but at the same time, when you have, you know, both of them, they do a little different. And is it true that it's better to have a smaller agency than one big one? And if you're lost there, what do you think about that?
That's another really good question. I think in the beginning of someone's career, that is very true. You want someone who has a smaller roster of actors so that they can work harder for you. So yes, I think that is true when you're beginning. I think after you have had a number of roles, after you have a long resume, then you would move to a bigger agency, generally a higher level agency. But at starting out, I would probably go with a smaller agency theatrically. Now, commercials are different. Typically, a commercial agency will have a lot of actors, and everyone gets equal time. Just because the pitching process the way agents get you commercial auditions is different than the way theatrical agents get you auditions. It's more of a numbers game, and theatrical agents, I think, actually have to pitch you, and that takes more time and effort.
Elizabeth, for you as an actress, what is the difficult things and what is the easiest? How can you describe, like, you always have been working on yourself. Have you ever didn't prepare for any audition? Just did you ever rely on your own talent? Like, I've done so many auditions, I'll just go and everything is going to be all right. How does that work for you?
Oh gosh, I wish I could do that. Well, my biggest challenge in my acting career has been getting a good agent. So finally I have one. I always prepare for every audition. And sometimes the preparation process is more difficult. Like you said, comedy feels more comfortable to me. Very emotional roles that involve crying and intense emotions like fear, I've always had to work a little harder at. So those are the most challenging auditions for me. But I have a whole process that I go through when I get an audition. You know, before I start learning my lines is the last thing I do. The first thing I do is I sit with it and I write everything out, like, what is the circumstance? What's my objective? You know, what are my actions? How am I going about getting my objective? All of that sort of thing. And then I go through the lines and I start reading them and I put them in my own words, and that's how I prepare. And some auditions require more preparation and others don't. But I work better if I go into an audition and I'm fully prepared and I know all my lines. I just need to spend a lot of time doing that.
So did you ever have, yes, I already asked that, but like some materials, they just go so natural, like you can see that, oh, that's so me, and that's the comedy for you. So, but how do you prepare for the drama stuff? And I know that even if in your background in terms of movies or TV series, you maybe haven't done much of those, but in school we get the material where we need to work on that. So where from does that go? I want to know more about you, your personal life, your feelings, your memories, a little bit more about you. Where did you get it from, your story?
With regard to preparing.
Well, for example, we say drama, like it's much harder for you. But for example, like in Meisner, we create picture around ourselves. We imagine stuff. But I know that, you've been to another place and then you moved. Your parents are probably still in that place. How do you guys meet each other? And is it, how do you feel about your life right now in this moment? And also after that, I want to talk about the pandemic situation a little bit too. How did you guys went through that quarantine thing and all that?
Well, yes. So my parents are still in Maryland, and I haven't gotten to see them for the past year because of the pandemic. I have a sister there, older sister, and my older brother, John Michelson, is an actor as well. He's also a good comedian, and he lives in Van Nuys here. He lives in the Valley. And when I prepare more dramatic roles, I use substitutions. So for example, if I had to do a role where I'm upset about maybe I've lost my child or something, and I don't have children, I would then substitute in someone that I love, like maybe I've lost my parent or Ron, my husband, or my cat. So for me, it's about substituting personal things in my real life that get me to that emotion. I am able to do that now, and Lisa Malilo has really helped me with that. My husband and I, Ron Burkhart, we don't have kids. We have cats. We have lots of cats. I love cats.
Lots? How many?
we have 3. We had 4, but we had to put him down last month because he had cancer. But we have 3 cats, and before the pandemic, I volunteered at an animal shelter, and of course, I had to take one of them home with me. So that's how we got 4 cats.
No,
So I love animals.
that's so cute. And yes, I remember me using a dog when I didn't have a child, and I really needed to play a mother, and it did really help. Yeah, the substitution is the main thing when you know what you're caring about is the most deep feelings
I
there.
I know some techniques use memories to pull up emotions, but that doesn't work for me because memories never have the same emotional weight later that they did when it was happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's great that you say that because that's why I'm talking about Meisner mostly instead of other techniques that use really like something from the past, and it's also very hurtful to go back and you cannot really feel the same, but you still get sick, and then a few days after that you cannot get yourself back to to normal place,
Yeah,
which is
I don't think, I think that it's safer emotionally to use substitutions because then you're not opening up old wounds that you have to deal with in your life. It's good to keep it separate. I think
Mhm.
it's safe. It's safer that way.
Can you remember something on set, some interesting situation, or something that happened unexpectedly for you? Can you tell us a story about that? And I'm
Yeah.
sure there's plenty.
um, the first TV commercial I ever did was for Ford Escape car in 2008. And at the audition, they asked me, "Do you mountain bike?" And I said, "No, I do not mountain bike." But they hired me anyways, and it was a 3-day shoot. And the first day was just a regular shoot, and the second day they shot me driving a car, and the third day they had me on a mountain bike, and I was concerned because I don't know how to mountain bike, and I'm on this bike, biking down this steep hill where there's tree roots and tree branches all over the place. And every single take, I fell off the bike. And the director was yelling at me, and every single take. I had bruises on my legs for a month after that. But luckily, they got the footage they needed. But I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed.
But I mean, you
um,
told them.
yeah, I told them, but hey, I guess they really loved me. But it was yeah. Always be honest with people about your skill set. Don't ever lie about that because they will make you do it. So yeah, but yeah.
I had almost the same thing on the movie with Mark Dacascos, where I had to, really he's jumping from the uh, how do you say that the roof,
Mhm.
and he does that, he's playing, and then I have to really like ride really fast, and I didn't know how to ride the not automatic thing, and on set they brought the actual. I was like, didn't each take.
Oh
Everyone was
no.
laughing. I was really, really embarrassing. But then they found a stand, so I was like, it was not me, but from the back they shot that the car is moving actually. So yes, I remember more. Tell me more.
Oh,
Something with the lines. Have you ever had a situation where your partner was not like sometimes there's you're very experienced actress, and not always everyone is so friendly on set, and how do you deal with people who are not really friendly, and how do you keep yourself in the character when this situation like that happens?
luckily, I've only experienced that maybe twice. The first time I experienced that was on a TV show I did, where I was just coming in for one day to do a role, and one of the lead actresses wouldn't she wouldn't acknowledge me. Like normally the series regulars on shows will say hello, you'll meet them, and then you'll go about your business. But this particular young woman, for some reason, didn't want to speak to me or acknowledge me. And it was very uncomfortable. And I don't know if I had done something to offend her, if she was having a bad day, or but regardless, you know, you have to stay in character, and I did not have a very fun experience because of that. But you live and learn. You have to still be a professional and do your job and be polite. And then on another job I did, one of the actors, a male actor, was not prepared, and he didn't remember any of his lines, and it was frustrating because we had to do take after take after take of him not learning his lines. So it's just and of course you have to be professional, and you can't say anything, you just have to keep going along with it. And it's just all about being professional and being polite to everyone, and just maybe trying to be compassionate. Maybe he's been going through something personal, but it's really important to always be prepared. So
in your first situation, what did you use to get yourself back to your preparation for our audience, preparation, emotional preparation? Because I know this, you know, I've experienced the same thing, and Lisa Mililo was there with me on set. It was my very first movie, and the female lead, the opposite, she was really, really rude to me, and probably on purpose to really get me out of my character. And she almost got me there. But we did such a great homework with Lisa, and at that time I worked with Kelly Ryder, who was my English coach. And I remember me using some preparation, but I want you to tell me, what did you use for that? Because it's really, really important.
yeah, wow, I'm sorry you had that experience. I just kept to myself. I just kept in my own little bubble, in my own little world, and I just kind of sat by myself alone all day, and was friendly with people if they were friendly, if, you know, if they came to talk to me. But I just tried to stay focused and remember that it was just one day, and this is just one person, and that the way she's treating me is not going to affect my performance. Luckily, because we did not have scenes together, but I was just with her a lot on set, because we were on a separate location. But I just tried to keep blinders on, and just kept myself away from her. I just try to stay away from her the best I could. But I just think it's important to stay focused, and always have the thoughts that your character is having. That's important, is to have the thoughts your character is having.
So do you, yeah, I always want to understand those people, because if you act with others normally, and then you choose just one particular person, what moves you to really do that? And especially with the colleagues, we know what it is to be prepped, and we know what it is to work on the show, and like, why would you do that?
I don't know. I just I'm not that kind of person, and I know that you're not that kind of person. It just, things are easier when everyone gets along. I don't know why people act like that. Insecurity, maybe.
Or jealousy.
Yeah.
Which is an illness for some people. It's really, really hard to take.
Yeah.
When somebody is so talented and pretty. I can understand that. Yeah. Well, Lee, can you please remember your favorite work that you've done? The one that you really go back and remember, like, yes, I really did it.
Well, I'm always proud of my work on the show that I'm on, Rich and the Ruthless. But I was especially proud of the work I did on a film that you showed, and it's about, I am playing an alcoholic woman who has gotten into a car accident and killed a child. and uh, and then it's called Vendetta, and it came out
Wow.
2 years ago, and it's very emotional. The father of the child who I killed comes back, and he tries to get me to admit that I do it, and he gets me arrested, and it's just very emotional. And I was proud that I was able to
Mm-hmm.
convey a realistic, good performance, with deep emotion. And it was all, we were shooting in the middle of the night, and it was very cold, and it was physically uncomfortable, but I used that to help me with the character. And I was just really proud of that work I did, because it's
Oh,
very
wow.
different than what I normally do.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna watch that right after our live because I want to see you do that. And just when you said that, it got me, like just to imagine that for a second is a really, really hard thing. Yes. Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about how did you spend your time when the whole situation with the pandemic happened and your time with the quarantine? How did you spend your time?
Well, I like to sometimes when I get the creative impulse, I will write a song, and it's usually a silly, funny song. Um, and I make a music video. Our mutual friends, Yuki Lin, and David Lloyd Smith, who are also amazing actors, fellow students with us. I made a video with them a couple years ago. So I made a couple of videos about coronavirus. So I used that as my creative outlet. And I also started taking I took some fun college classes that I'd never taken before, some sociology. So I've been working on that, and that's been really fun and eye-opening, about learning about gender and race. And then also, luckily, I got the opportunity to shoot the 4th season of the Rich and the Ruthless show that I'm on. So actually, during the pandemic, we were able to shoot that.
How?
And then
Physically.
well, we all got tested. We all had to get tested beforehand.
Hmm.
And on set, everyone wears a mask, and they're physically distanced. Of course, when it's time to actually do the acting, you can't wear your mask. You take your mask off, and we're all tested, so we're all negative, hopefully. And we tried to do the best we could,
Hmm.
but luckily, no one got sick. No one got sick on this, which is amazing. And here in the United States, we have COVID compliance officers who work on every set. And they're kind of
Hmm.
like set medics who police the area and make sure everyone's wearing their mask and not staying too close. And even with craft services, they give you your food is all separated and boxed. So it's very
Hmm.
different than a set before the pandemic. It's very different now.
Hmm.
And
And
I
I know.
also just I also just shot a TV commercial, um, for Rocket Mortgage, which may or may not air soon. I hope it will. And that, again, was we had to get tested beforehand. We got tested on set. And it was really a smooth operation. Everyone was wearing their masks.
Hmm.
And again, it went really well. But as long as everyone is abiding by the rules, then it's fine.
Hmm. Yeah, it seems to be very different. I know that Baron Brown Studio are coaching through the Zoom, which is totally different, and it's been a while now. Have you ever tried to take those classes or to join the something from Baron Brown, uh, or not in the Zoom style?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. So I have been studying with Lisa Malilo ever since I graduated the 2-year program, and she has an ongoing audition technique class. And since the pandemic, it's been via Zoom, and I've been taking it every week. And it's fine. You know, it's at first there were some technical issues, but it's been absolutely fine. And I actually think that it's really important that actors learn how to act under these technological circumstances now, because, you know, all of our auditions are self-tapes. So we really need to learn how to act in this circumstance on the camera. It's a different beast, and I think it's important that everyone take classes during Zoom right now. It's because it's different.
Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth, what other skills do you have except the acting? Horseback riding, dancing, you know, running. What else do you do, and how does that help you in your acting career? Sorry.
Well, I love to sing, so I sang in the Rich and the Ruthless show that I'm on. I wrote a song and I sang in season 3, and I like to make my music videos. I used to love I still love ballet. I don't dance anymore, but ballet is one of my favorite things, and I know that you share that as well. Right now I swim. I love to swim. I could exercise all the time and be happy. I love to exercise. I love to read. I love my animals. So I like to be physically active and read all the time. So that's what I like to do in my free time. But I watch a lot of ballet videos.
How about traveling? Have you ever moved out of Los Angeles? Have you ever thought about, you know, making a career in Europe or even Russia? But because now when the self-tapes are a really common thing, have you ever thought about getting an agent in Europe?
Yes, I have thought about that. Well, I've thought about having an agent in different areas of the United States. Like, whoops, our other phone is ringing. I've thought about moving to places like New Orleans or Atlanta, because right now it's cheaper for TV and film to be made there, and a lot of things are being made there. But I am tied to Los Angeles. My husband is here. He has his career here. But I would like to get an agent in one of those other cities and take advantage of that. I would love to have an agent in Europe. I don't speak any other languages, though. That might be a problem. But I do a good Irish accent. I can do that sort of thing.
You brought up that you also, well, you said that there is many different agencies in Los Angeles, like everywhere. For example, voiceover agent, commercial agent, dance agent, modeling agent, blah, blah, and theatrical as well. Do you do voiceover agencies as long as you're singing? And if you do, then what was your favorite voices you've created?
Ooh, yes, I do love voiceover. I like to do like different animal voices, like making voices for animals. But
can you show us something?
Oh, well, yes, of course. I'm a little squirrel, and I like to eat little nuts and things and that sort of thing. I'm an Irish squirrel, actually, and I like pots of gold. I love doing voices all the time, but actually the majority of the voiceover work I do is more just regular radio, regular advertisements, nothing.
Can you
nothing
show us
fancy.
a British accent? British accent.
Oh, of course. Oh, yes, of course. I dance with the Royal Ballet, and I love to do all sorts of things with the Queen. And this is a very upper class British accent, and I love that sort of thing. And I would love to go to London, to the Royal Opera House, to see the ballet and Sir Anthony Dowell's choreographic works. Yes.
Love that. So Elizabeth, it is very important in United States in acting to use your different accents. Is that correct? Right?
Yes.
If you're playing somebody from you know, New York, you need to have a New York accent. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, I love doing accents. Sometimes because I just generally throughout the day, I talk to myself a lot. And often I will talk to myself in different accents and I don't know that I'm doing it. But like, I love doing characters that are a little bit, that are from New York. I've done some of those characters and I try not to make the accent too stereotypical. But I do like to do like a New York kind of Bronx, Brooklyn accent, like this one I'm doing now. And then you can do like, well, the South, more like the East Coast Southerners, like in Georgia, very kind of like a soft, feminine accent. You know, I want to mint julep, maybe. And but I also I try to do Australian as well. I like to do Australian vowels tend to be more round. And then I often will speak to myself in a Russian accent. So I'm a Russian ballerina. Wait, let me think.
Yes, actually, it's really good.
I my favorite ballet. No, and that's French. I have to think about it for a second. Don Quixote. Don Quixote, and I am with the Bolshoi Ballet and with the Vagonova, and I love to dance in the Bayadere and Giselle.
Bandera. Giselle. I love that. Unfortunately, we've got like only 5 minutes left. That Instagram gives us 1 hour. I love that interview, and we have that tradition. I want you to give us 3 advices for somebody who is just in the beginning of their acting career, or someone who is about to move to Los Angeles and to just start their life there. What would be your 3 advices for those?
Oh, yes. Number one, get good acting training and always be training. It's like any other art form. If you play a musical instrument or if you dance, you have to practice every day. So you have to make it a habitual thing to be training and practicing your acting every day. Number two, be nice to everybody. Be nice to everybody because you never know who might be the next Steven Spielberg. And if you were nice to them, they'll be nice to you. And then number three, always try to help other people. Always try to help other people. And like if you see an actor who's really good and they don't have an agent, introduce them to your agent. It's always good to do nice things for other people and expect nothing in return, because I believe the universe will then deliver nice things back to you. So train, be nice, and do good things for others.
So great. I mean, I've heard so many advices, but yours are my favorite, honestly. This is
Thank
so
you.
good. That's exactly what I would say, and that's exactly how I would do.
And
And
that's how you are, because I remember when you did one of your films in Russia, you tried to get me a role, although it went to someone else. I was always very flattered by that. And I will always think of you very nicely because of
I
that.
was a fan of yours,
I'm
you
a
know.
fan of yours too. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this interview, and I'm looking forward to see you soon again. I'm trying to get my visa back, and hopefully this pandemic situation will stop, and soon there's a pilot season, so we'll see again. We'll see each other very soon again, and I'm gonna call you right back, and please send me your music videos because I didn't know you're singing and you're making those music videos. I really want to put them after our interview in my
Okay.
stories and put a link to others so they can see that as well. Thank you so much. It was so great
Thank
to see you.
you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.